It only takes one spark, one insight, one idea to create the exponential growth you desire. Welcome to the Growth Mode Podcast, where we share the strategies for your growth. Hey, welcome back to the Growth Mode Podcast, episode 5, Jimmy. Jason's not here. Are we going to talk trash about him the whole time?
The answer is, of course we are, Tom. Of course we are.
For my friend listening, Jimmy and I were doing a text that we talked this morning and then a text afterwards. We thought we would take this a totally different direction. And the route we want to go, so this is either going to keep you really listening or you're just going to move on to something else. Either one is fine. Is, I don't know how many businesses, Jimmy, how many businesses do you think you've created or started in your career?
Yeah, well, we're now at 6, Tom. So I've now 6 businesses I've founded. One I've sold, one didn't work, and we got 3 that are now cranking.
Okay, so as you know, I think I've started 6 in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
One I'm writing off a $750,000 loss for. I don't say that bragging. I'm pissed, but it's because we didn't follow the rules that I want to share with our listener today. There are, for me, there's 8 rules that we do our best to adhere to when we are starting a new company, when we're building a new product, right? So it could be either one. And again, I preface this for you, my friend, listening that, maybe this is the wrong thing for you to be listening to. And you could say, look, I want to grow, but I'm going to grow in different ways, AI, marketing, et cetera. And this show is also about that. But again, in the spirit of sort of entrepreneurship and growing companies, I thought it'd be good to just give you a framework, right? A perspective of how we look at building a business. And so, Jimmy, I'll share my list. I know you're going to have comments about it. I know you have sort of your principles. And funny, I've got, for the person listening on the podcast, I have Ray Dalio's Principles book sitting right here in front of me. So again, here's the thought. You sit down with me and you're like, I have this idea. I have this idea for a new company. I have this idea for a new product line, or I want to productize, as an example, something in my real estate business, something in my mortgage business, something in my sales business. The first thing I'm going to say to you, my 8 rules are, number 1, and there's no order. They could literally be the number 1 8 times in a row. Number 1 is I always want to think with small teams and AI first. So small team, AI first. Small team could be me by myself with AI. Then I'm like, look, I need marketing. I need strategy. I bring in Jimmy and I'm like, so now it's me, Jimmy, and the AI. All working on one Google Doc. Then I'm like, well, I need Brandon because this is going to be a video first thing. So, hey, Brandon, will you join us in this? But it's that old strategy. And I forget, Jimmy, who said it first, but it's like the pizza box.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One pizza feeds, 4 people. That's your max on the team. And my caveat to it is now it's AI first. So I've got to have an AI component to everything I'm building today, not just AI incorporated, which that's a part of it, but it's the AI is helping me out of the gate build the right product, build the right strategy, build the right solution. So that's number 1. I'll go through them quickly. Number 2 is it's got to solve a worthwhile problem. It's got to solve a worthwhile problem. I was listening to this podcast this morning, and the guy was great. He basically said something to the effect of, we're not all going to be the next Sam Altman. We're not all going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, but there is a fortune to be made in building 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 and 30 and $100 million businesses. And I think that's great for my listener to think about, maybe you finally figured out a way to productize something you've done inside your business that could take you from making, $800,000 to $8 million following these same principles. So it's got to be a worthwhile problem. And my caveat or my note to that is it also has to be a large enough addressable market to be worth the squeeze. So if we're going to build this, it's like when people come to me, and I'll just be very candid for my listener, people will come to me and say, I've got this idea and it's going to revolutionize all real estate teams. I'm like, all 1,400 of them in the country? Like, that software better be extraordinary. And by the way, if you got 10% of the market, you got 140 people. Does that make it worthwhile? Where I could think of one of my mentors who always like, hey, you want to become a billionaire? Solve a 1 billion person problem. So you're always looking for the biggest possible addressable market that has a problem maybe that isn't in plain sight.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not something people are talking about all the time, but if you can identify the problem, amplify the problem, and create a solution for it, you can build a whole business or product around it. Number three, time to value. Jimmy, I'm going to let you speak to that one in a minute. Number four, um, you got to keep, this is so important for me, you got to keep the
Mhm.
internal and outward facing external language at the seventh grade level.
Mhm.
Because one of the mistakes that I see when people are building things is they get stuck in the, is it nomenclature? They get stuck
Yep.
in like their language and
Yep.
they start speaking in a way that only the internal team understands.
Yep.
And I tell them, look, you need to start first with, let's build this because we're building it for someone. And
Mhm.
that someone doesn't speak our nerdy language, right?
Mhm.
So internal, external language has to be the same. Number five, this shouldn't shock you. Build the business with high margins out of the gate.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people fantasize over building products and companies and services, and they forget that whole make a profit and not
Mm.
just a profit from the standpoint of gross margin, but like actually cash flowing, like a real profitable business that you can then use those profits to do all the things you want, grow your business, change the world. So always think about it from the standpoint of low cost, high margin. And if what you're doing is serving luxury, then it needs to be high enough in perceived value that you can charge enough to still build in a margin to make the business worthwhile, to make the effort worthwhile. Number six, build with some form of high virality
Mhm.
or automatically that you would pick up organic. So high virality that people want to share this, they want to say that they're a part of it, or ideally that when someone looks online that the name of your company and what you do is what they're searching for anyway.
Mhm.
So, could you have it either be viral or could you have it be naturally easy organic or both? And then number seven, it should be self-serve because we live in a world today where I can buy a Tesla for 100 and whatever, 10,000 bucks on my iPhone. So if you
Mhm.
build and engineer from the standpoint of self-serve, you may not get so lucky that people will make that purchase online straight out of the gate. But if you make it easy for people, you're going to be more successful. And then again, add salespeople on top of that. And then the
Yep.
last one for me was always, always, always build it with the right mindset of easy and effective onboarding for the customer. And again, you
Mhm.
go back to, time to value. If the onboarding of the client experience is rough or difficult or time consuming out of the gate, you may have solved the best problem on the planet. You may have created an unbelievable solution. It's low cost, it's high margin. Everybody understands it when you speak it. It's organic and people find it
Mhm.
automatically. But if your onboarding sucks,
Mhm.
what happens, Jimmy? It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, if the barrier to entry is too high to experience the value,
Right.
then no one's gonna be able to get to that point. Let's start with number one. First off, Tom, epic list. I got some color commentary to add each one of these, but I think it'd be helpful if we slow the game down here and look at each one of these individually. And let's start with the small team mentality.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Like, imagine you're in this world where you have a big idea for your business, you want to grow your business, and you know you're going to need at least a person to start with.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you looking for the sort of opposite of yourself? Are you looking to fill a role for a need that you have today? Like, how do you go about finding that other person if you are, let's say, you bring 50% or 70% table, but you know you're going to need 30%?
I think it's context specific. If it requires engineering as an example,
Sure.
right? I could use AI and Claude, but I'm not as effective. So I might pull in Jason,
Yep.
right? I might pull in you for a little vibe coding as an example, or an engineer on my team. So I think it's always going to be context. If it is, if the problem isn't super clear,
Mhm.
but I've got I need somebody else to help me pull the thread on it,
Yep.
then I'm probably going to bring in some marketing people, some strategy people to say, I think the problem's this, but before we do research, can you help me clearly articulate it as an example?
Let me ask that I'm gonna build on this for a second because I think it's super important. You have a lot of employees. I have at previous companies have had a lot of employees. We both know there's a very big difference between employee number 55 or 100 or
Right.
155 versus employee number 3. What's the makeup of a really successful early employee? What do you think like the attributes this individual needs to have in comparison to if you're like employee number 112?
I would say smart, fast, and gets it.
Mm.
And I mean, there could be a thousand things, but smart, like, hey, Brandon, I got this idea. What do you think? And they're like, oh, first of all, I get it. Okay.
Mhm.
But we needed this, and you missed this, and you missed that, and you missed this. Like, I need them to immediately be able to contribute based on their intelligence. Their intelligence could be broad intelligence. My son sitting next to me over here, or it could be somebody that is just really good at that specific thing,
Mhm.
and they're going to get me there faster.
Yeah.
The other thing is speed, because in the very beginning, the biggest mistake that I've made, and I've made a lot of mistakes, is just getting to some form of MVP just takes too much time.
Mhm.
So I need people that are like working 24/7. Good example of what I called you about a logo idea that I wanted. And like the next morning, you're like, something like this.
Yeah.
And I know all you did is you went to one of your guys in Europe and said, well, they can work from, 7 o'clock at night to the next morning. And we got it. But
Yeah.
like that mentality of you got a new idea, you got to be able to run it up the flagpole as quickly as possible, not just with your small team, or in my case, with my management team or my partners, right?
Sure.
To get some level of consensus before we go all in on it.
Yep.
But I need on the short term people that can move fast to be able to say, is this going to be worthwhile?
Yeah. The way I think about what you just said there, Tom, is the principle I believe in. It's we don't have many employees across our portfolio at this stage. We have a lot of owners, but not employees. I look for high energy, high output.
Yeah.
Meaning I want like listen, we get paid to solve problems. We
Yes.
all know this. And
Yep.
so we all have people in our lives when they experience a problem, what they like to do is they like to sort of infect you with all of their problems. So they think like
Yep.
Patty McCord had a great line. Patty McCord is the chief people person over at Netflix. And she's like, and people, these engineers would come to her, and these, by the way, engineers who had probably had packages of over $1 million, salaries of $500,000. They would come to her and say, like, "Hey, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I'm dealing with." And
Yeah.
she's like, "That's not who we are at Netflix. Problem finders are cheap."
Right.
And I just think that you and I both subscribe to this idea that we're looking for high energy, high output, which also means that, like, when you deal with a problem, you've
Yep.
got to be able to solve that problem. Building on that for a second, though, Tom, you mentioned at the beginning of this session today, we're talking about AI. So everything you and I just said is true about building a business pre 2023. Now, as we look at 2025 and beyond, as we
Mhm.
sort of made the jump and transition into AI, are you looking for employees? Are you looking for teams that are AI efficient? AI, like, are we looking for people who are using AI every day in their normal workflows? Is that part of the process right now? Where if you're going to interview someone, Tom, are you saying that the first question is, "Tell me how you're using AI"? Is that how it's changed?
I think the first thing I would say to him now, and I haven't interviewed anybody in a while, is show me your phone or just
Mhm.
hand me your phone. And if I look at their phone, and Jimmy, I go right to I go to my phone.
Yeah.
If I don't see Grok, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity right in the very beginning of their phone, unless they could say, well, I use the search bar all the time, I'm still going to call BS.
Mhm.
So I think today, every employee, every teammate, every founder, if you're not spending 45 minutes, an hour every day doing some form of deep research for your own career, your life, your product, your industry, where you think it's going, I think you're missing the mark. I
Yeah.
mean, I think every entrepreneur knows time to actually think and carefully analyze and evaluate your business or your industry has to be something you're doing on the daily.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let me build on that for a second, Tom, which is I have a rule, a principle of mine
Mhm.
when it comes to people I work with that I've subscribed to now for over a decade, which is I will only invest in you as much as you are willing to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And so if I look at somebody who is not reading, writing, listening to podcasts, getting certified, if all of their self-development is coming from me, I
Yeah.
know I will never get a return on the individual. And you and I both know the best people we work with, the people that we partner with, or the people that work for us, they are investing in themselves at such a clip and so obvious.
Right.
And those people, you every bit of time you give those individuals, you get a 10x return on. So let's build on this idea. I'm going to recap small teams.
But let's stop first before we jump. What do you say to the person who's listening right now, Jimmy? I mean, I deal with this all day long. The business coaching side of my life is, but I don't have people like that on my team that I can pitch and catch with.
Sure.
What's your response to that?
Well, first off, if you're complaining about that, you gotta fix your mindset. I mean, like, for the reality is that if you don't have who hired them, Tom? You hired them.
Right.
I've always believed, like, almost every problem it may not be your fault, but it is your problem.
Mhm.
As an executive, as a leader, it may not be your fault, but it is your problem.
Yep.
If you find yourself surrounded by people who are not giving you energy, getting you excited, that you can't and actually, a great example is, Tom, is that even people I work with who I think are maybe a little more junior, a little bit less experienced, one of the ways I know it's a good individual, a good sort of like foil for my creativity is if my ideas get better because of our conversations,
Bingo.
you
Bingo.
know? So like if I come to them with a B idea and by the time that we end, maybe they added nothing except just asking some questions and then all of a sudden I feel like I got an A, then that individual is of value to me. But if you don't have someone in your business, let's like I'll be a little more empathetic, which is difficult for me as you know, Tom. But what I'd say if you don't have someone in your business that has that plays that role, then it's a peer group. It's a network. I mean, that's the obvious thing. Like,
That is the answer.
all right, it's like you just at level like Tom and I are we're like Thanos. We are trying to collect Infinity Stones. We look for the smartest people and usually what ends up happening is I find someone really smart and then Tom uses his cachet to DM them and have a conversation. And that usually works for usually works for us. But we are like always looking for the smartest person in their niche as a way to sort of surround ourselves with.
Right.
So yeah, that would be my just general answer on that, Tom.
So the first one I think for my friend listening is it really is people,
Mhm.
right? It's people, right? You got to be around the right people. And what that also means is that one of the big mistakes that I have done, right?
Yep.
I'm certainly guilty of it and I've witnessed over and over again, especially with founders that come to me and say, "I would like your money so I can, increase my opportunities of succeeding, right? Investing in startups." The mistake is this, they make this decision completely in a silo.
Mhm.
They have no one that's going, "Let me poke a hole in that. What about," and by the time they get to me, I'm 3 questions in my typical interview to try and discover, is this company gonna be worthwhile to invest in? I'm 3 questions in and I'm like, "Done.
Yeah.
Alright, you can leave. Sorry." Because
Mhm.
when you make decisions in a silo, you don't get enough input. You don't, have some early run it up the flagpole, see how people respond. That could just be something as simple as like putting out something on X just
Yeah.
to see, does it resonate or not? But that
Mm.
leads to the next one, which is really that whole problem thing. Unpack, like, give us your input on, I say the bigger the problem, the better. But also
Yep.
there is an argument for find a small problem
Mhm.
that hasn't been tapped into, that everyone says hasn't been able to, couldn't solve it. And if you do, maybe it is a 5 or 10 or 15 or $100 million business.
I think about this a lot, Tom, and, I'll tell you what I've learned about problems and picking problems. The first thing is I always look for what are painful things that people are doing manually
Yeah.
right now that despite how difficult it is, they still do it. And so that's a very good forward-looking indicator, like, this is a problem that people care about most deeply. The second thing I look for is, Canva did a fantastic job with this. Canva, has this great visual, I'll see if I can pull up here in a second, where they sort of figured out a soft spot in the market. So when you look
Yes.
at a market and you evaluate a market, you're gonna have everything from cheap to expensive, from call it, like, low end to luxury, from easy to hard, and what Canva did, which they built, I don't know what Canva's latest private valuation is, but it's certainly I think north of 30 billion, especially with Figma just popping off recently.
Right.
But they said, listen, right now Adobe serves professionals and like Microsoft Paint serves people with no taste. And so they're like, okay, like what's the alternative? And like we believe that there's a part of the market, we don't know how big it is. There's a part of the market that is looking for easy to use design tools that look great.
Mhm.
And that's the part of the market that was the kind of their entire thesis. And so I think when it comes to problems, I'm looking for people, I'm looking for things that people are doing today that they do manually, and it's really painful. B, I'm looking for the existing incumbents to say, okay, where is the soft spots? Where are the weaknesses in their armor? And I think finally, number three, Tom, and an important question for all of us to ask, is as the world is evolving, what is now possible that wasn't possible?
That one, yes.
Right? Like that, if you take sort of stock of what's happening right now, especially today in the world where AI is transforming every sort of 3 months, what is now possible that it wasn't possible maybe 6 months ago, 12 months ago? Some of the greatest innovation we've seen recently is a direct result of that, right?
Yes.
Of just saying, "Hey, listen, this idea was everyone's already known about this idea for a long time. It wasn't possible. Now, because technology has caught up, it now is possible, and you see people flooding in that space and doing exceptionally well." Where does your head go?
I actually think about the conversation we had earlier about someone we know in the industry whose business is off by 60, 70%. Everything that they're doing, and they built a really good brand, everything they're doing could be replicated today by any agent with one AI prompt,
Mhm,
right? And so that's an interesting thought as you're thinking about, for my friend listening, you know, AI is, we are just at the very beginning.
mhm,
But an interesting framework is, what does all of my competition do that they've always done that takes time and is hard that I can now use some of these tools to do very fast and solve this problem at scale? And even better, do it completely personalized to each individual that I want to present it to.
mhm,
I mean, it's
mhm.
just when you start thinking about that, it usually does lead us into time to value, which is a nice little segue or not. But I think that's the hook. Like, if I was a friend of ours listening to this show, and let's say I'm a real estate agent, and I'm like, I've always had this idea, right? But man, it feels expensive and it's hard. Well, now today with the series of, very inexpensive tools, you could build an MVP, right? A minimum viable product. You could begin to test it with your own customers and friendlies. You could maybe test it with a few agents and see if there's some signals before you actually say, now let me go deploy this.
Yeah.
Where in the past we were in this thing like, well, I've got to build an app, right? Or I
Mhm,
got to build this software, or I got to, hire these people to get this machinery moving in the right direction. Oftentimes before I even know, should I do it? I know the problem's there,
mhm.
but I'm going to have to spend a bunch of money to make it happen to even see if I got a shot. And that's before you even talk go to market.
Tom, this is an important lesson everyone should take who's listening to this pod is you gotta drink your own champagne.
Yeah.
So many people right now who are building businesses and products never put themselves through the experience they're creating for customers.
Right.
And if you drink your own champagne, you quickly learn where there are issues. If you go through and this applies to any business, service-based businesses like real estate or technology businesses like we're building. If you go through your onboarding experience and you just like and you're just cringing because every corner there's like a paper cut or every corner there's a disclaimer, you're just like,
Right.
okay, like the consumer, this job is to say this, that the consumer does judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
You're not going to be there with them to explain, oh, don't worry about that, just do this instead. Like all of the little workarounds you've created in your businesses and products are points of failure that cause pain for the consumer. So I just think it's a great way to think about this idea of like when you're choosing worthwhile problems, if you're in that early stage, you should drink your own champagne before you start trying to sell it. You should be your number one customer. You should be your biggest fan. And then if it solves your problem, then it makes it a little easier for you to begin to get out there and get some additional users. Um, Time to value. We talk a lot about this. Give me your perspective on it.
So there's a wonderful book written back in the 90s, and I forget the author's name. It's maybe somebody can pull it up and share it in the show notes, Brandon. The book was called Free, Perfect, and Now. And it was written by an insurance guy. I think he was in Southern California. And basically, what he was saying was,
Hmm.
if you want to know what consumers want, if you want to surprise and delight customers, what they want is something free, they
Hmm.
want it perfect, and they
Hmm.
want it right now. So a lot of people, can build a lower cost product. And look, I mean, YouTube, God bless YouTube, allowed me to give away a ton of stuff for free into the marketplace.
Mhm.
So free. I don't know if it was ever perfect, but it was, it was me on YouTube. But the real key is that people want it immediately.
Yeah.
I push a button and magic happens. I push a button and an Uber driver shows up. And if that driver, Michael, is for me, I don't know, a minute late, I'm like looking at my son, like, how do I cancel this? Like,
Mhm.
how do I kill this Uber? We want things. How many Amazon packages show up to your house every day?
Mhm.
And you're like,
Mhm.
"What? No, I'll do Prime, of course, because I want it immediately,
Mhm.
immediately." So time to value is really all of that synthesized as if you're going to deliver something to the marketplace and it takes them a while for them to experience it and make it work, man, you better be really effective in your sales presentation. Good
Yeah.
example. Ready? The number of people that I don't know, Jimmy, if you talk to, but maybe it's my age group, right? That are like, oh yeah, I'm doing Ozempic.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, how fast did you notice the difference? Well, it wasn't really until week 3 that I started to, and I'm like, now here's what's funny. They were complaining that it took 3 weeks.
Mhm.
They wanted to do an injection, take a pill, and cut like 7 pounds immediately,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Nobody wants thin thighs in 30 days anymore. They want it
Yeah.
instantaneously. So
Mhm.
so I think I'm giving you all kinds of examples of where my head goes, but time to value is even if a lead comes in, how fast did they get a thank you email from you, a thank you
Mhm.
video text, a phone call from you? Because
Yeah.
that's also time to value. Hey, I took the time to put my name inside this portal. And what was the number one complaint? Talking to our old friends that started Zillow back in the day, like
Nobody
60%
calls
of the
you.
people ever even answer the phone. And when they answer
Yeah.
the phone, they went like this, hello.
Mhm.
There was
Mhm.
no value in either one of those. So
Mhm.
time to value can be broken down a bunch of different ways. Like how soon does the experience the consumer get the experience, the benefit that they paid for, to how fast do I just get a pleasing personality on the phone that says, "How can I help you?"
You can make the argument, Tom, that if real estate agents nailed time to value, they would never have to buy another lead again.
Yes.
And the reason why is because right now, if you go to Reddit forums or you look at any type of online communities, the number one complaint that people have about our industry, without fail, is the fact that the lack of communication
Right.
and the lack of perceived value that we provide across the board. It is universally the number one thing that plagues our industry. What comes to mind for me if I'm listening to this right now, I'm thinking to myself, if one of the easier, faster ways to sort of unpack this idea to increase your time to value, because it's a big idea, is you think about all the customer touch points. And if you mapped out all the customer touch points you have, everything from the time they visit your website to the time that they talk to a human being or the time they use your product or service. I mean, if you map it all out, you realize that each one of those moments is an opportunity for you to deliver something of value to the consumer. And what's
Mhm.
interesting right now is the really smart products that we all love and use are actually giving value before they ask for anything.
Right.
And
Right.
that's actually something we've been thinking deeply about recently. Is normally if you sign up for any app on the internet pre-2025, it's Tom, what's your name, what's your email address, what's your phone number, sign in, and then once you sign in and you've given us something, we will now give you something back in return, access to our product, access to our
Mhm.
service. What's happening now, which is a really interesting trend, is we're flipping that, which is use the thing that we provide, whatever that thing might be. And if you really like it enough, then you can sign up, register, pay, whatever else it is. And so whether it's Perplexity, Claude, OpenAI, ChatGPT, right? Like or any of the spin-off products that are using those large language models like Lovable and Bolt and Cursor and many, many, many more, they have just flipped that. And it's almost happened in a way that now everyone has using that as the standard. So I think time to value is such an incredible part of any building any business and realizing, to your point, I love that line, Tom. What's the name of the book? It's perfect now and free.
And every consumer wants it free, perfect, and now.
Every
Free, perfect,
consumer
and now.
and I mean that was true in the 90s and it's certainly true in 2025.
What's interesting though is we talk about this sort of this new explosion of hey, start using the product before I even get an email,
Mhm.
right? Think about the early days of portals when some portals were like, you have to give us an email to have permission to look at property.
Mhm.
And Realtor, Zillow, Trulia said, no, 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 we're just going to let you look at everything.
Mhm.
And obviously, for some people that, saying those companies, you get upset, right? But I'm going to use that as an example of, hey, they were giving it all away, even though what they were giving away was yours, right? Their listings. But that's a good example. So this has been around for a while. So
Mhm.
so it makes me think, for the person listening, I can go to your website and I can put in an email because I want access to information, or you can just give me the access to the information,
Mhm.
right? You could say, here are all my listings. Here is all of my services. Here is everything I do. Here is 15 videos of what I would do with you if you were a first time buyer or a first time seller or an investor. And I think that seems to be the key. Like, give it all away
Mhm.
and have the consumer go, she is valuable.
Yeah.
She has earned my business, versus the sort of old school gated approach that a lot of people still take even today.
Mhm. Yeah, and just before we move on, just on that same point, I think it's very counterintuitive because a lot of people who are gonna listen to this podcast being agents think of their listing presentation, their process as their secret sauce.
Right.
And what's interesting is, we talked about this before, like the small admission is how you build great acceptance. This idea, like it would be really everyone is so focused on just getting them to contact you when in fact the idea is like the goal of marketing is to make sales irrelevant. The goal of
Right.
marketing is to say, hey, you have given me so much information that you are the only person I want to work with at this point. And so I'm a huge fan of publishing your listing presentation publicly, sharing your
Yes.
SOPs publicly. I mean, like
Yes.
like, what happens after I sign up? After I sign this agreement, what's next? I
Mhm.
shouldn't have to talk to a human being to figure that piece out. Yet,
I know.
that's, kind of the status quo on that. Um, let's move on to something you and I both are very passionate about, which is communication. And your fourth point was internally and externally communicating at a seventh grade level. Now, I'm reminded as soon as you said that, I'm reminded of, let me give you a bad example and a good example. So, WeWork famously, they had their like internal mission was to help elevate. This is actually their mission statement. Our mission is to elevate the world's consciousness. So that was their mission statement, to elevate the world's consciousness. Now, I will give whoever is listening to this podcast $100 of Tom Ferry's money, okay, if you could tell me what that means.
He's
Because
always giving away my money for these competitions, by the way.
that's it.
My son is right there going, he should be giving it to me.
That's right. I will give you Tom Ferry's black card points if you get 100 black card points if you can get this right. But here's the thing is like nobody knows that mean. Now, if you compare that to, other businesses like Amazon, Amazon says to become Earth's most customer-centric company. Okay. Like, I understand what that means.
Mhm.
You wanna obsess over customers. This one's about raising human consciousness. Good luck with that. This one's
Yeah.
about becoming the world's most customer-centric company. So talk to me about how you think about communication. Let's start with internally first,
Mhm.
right? And then we'll move to externally.
So every company has their dialogue. And what I was trying to express to the team when I was installing this was, there's the way that we speak, the internal code that we use, the language that we use.
Mhm,
It's a mistake if we think that our customers are going to understand any of that. So,
mhm.
so if we keep speaking that way, we are naturally going to market that way. We're naturally going to communicate that way. We're going to write that way, and people aren't going to get it. People aren't supposed to have to unpack what does it mean to, what was the first one you gave the example of, like, change
Raise the
tables,
world's
right?
consciousness.
Like what the hell does that even mean? Right? Is that the
Mhm,
Dalai Lama's company? Because if it is, I'm interested. Can I invest in it? Otherwise, like if it's a software program, like, get over yourself.
mhm.
So the example I would use is, I say to agents all the time, don't use realtor speak. And my goodness, if you're one of my lender partners, I love you. Don't use mortgage speak,
Mhm,
because mortgage speak it's like Arabic for me. Like, I don't understand how. Well, because I got the SBXYZ of the hooby doo of the la la la, and I'm like, could you unpack that for me, Tom? What I said was, if you can put 5% down, I can get you a loan. So
mhm.
speak to me like that. And this is old school. Was it Zig Ziglar who said, if you talk to everybody at the seventh grade level, everyone will understand, right?
Mhm.
So agents use things like, well, why don't I give you access to the MLS, Major League Soccer?
Mhm.
Is that what you're giving me access to? Or, hey, I'm going to put your listing on all the portals.
Mhm.
What does that even mean? Right?
Mhm.
It's take the extra step to say, I'm going to put it on Realtor. It's going to be on Zillow. It's going to be on Homes. It's going to be on Street Easy. Make it as simple as possible for people to understand what it is you're saying. And the litmus test is you walk by a bunch of people and you share it. And if they look at you and go, what the hell are you talking about? Then you've lost.
Mhm.
It needs to be very clear and specific so anybody could understand. I got that problem, you got the clear solution, but it starts with your team. It starts with
Yeah.
that internal dialogue because once it's there, it spreads to everywhere. And how many companies have we seen get up on stage or, publicly start sharing what it is that they do? And half the
Mhm.
room is scratching the head going, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. There's so much there, Tom, to unpack, and I agree with what you said, but I think about this is a random reference, but Lee Iacocca, right, from Chrysler, who did the big Chrysler turnaround. He
Mhm.
had a great line. He 'cause Lee was a fantastic communicator, someone
Yes.
who could really kind of emotionally driven sales approach. And the line goes, his line was, "If you can find a better car, buy it." That was a warranty, right? Hey, it wasn't like, "Here's what Chrysler does, here's the fee," like, if you find a better car, buy it, which implies that they have a great car. So
Yes.
there's people that you can study in this space that I think are worth mentioning. So, some of the legends would be people like, you've got David Ogilvy, of course,
Yep.
you've got Eugene Schwartz, you've
Yep.
got, Claude Hopkins. These are some really, really interesting people to study. You know what I would also do, Tom, as an exercise is I have been lately obsessed with how some of these house of brands release and launch products.
Mhm.
So, like, look at P&G as an example. And so anytime an organization has to sell a product to hundreds of millions of people, you will notice that everything Tom just said is true.
Mhm.
Which is when you have to reach the masses, the more people you reach, the simpler your language and communication skills get. And that is universally true. So you think an example like the M&M campaign, M&M, melt in your mouth, McDonald's, I'm loving it. Every time you are having to communicate to a large group of people, which is part of what we want to do in our businesses, you have to simplify the language. So the first lesson there, Tom, I wrote down was internally get rid of the yoga babble that you have.
Yep.
Try to simplify the language. Now let's talk about externally for a second. Um,
So thank you're going there, but I'm going to just interject. You ready?
yep.
I just was with my buddy Joe Hanauer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Joe, for the person listening, you wouldn't know that name, but if you ever talk to the guy I love him referred to as the Yoda of real estate, finance, and tech, he is in his. I feel bad because he might listen to this. Joe, you're a good-looking man, but you're in your 80s. And in his 80s, this guy is so sharp. So we're in his car, we're driving down PCH just over the weekend, had a little break, and Jimmy, he says, "Let me show you this deal I'm working on." So we're gonna go walk this lot of I don't want to say the area, but like just in case. It was just a killer opportunity. And while we were driving, I said to him, "So you got a new car? You finally got rid of that Jaguar, huh?" And he goes, "Well, you know me, I'm not a big car guy. I've owned this Jaguar for, I owned it forever until basically it stopped working." And I said, "Did you happen to catch the last campaign that Jaguar ran?" Now, you and I have talked about this a bunch. He was unaware of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I sent him a lot of documents and like here's, some samples of what people are saying on X and Facebook and others and the Wall Street Journal. For my friend that's listening, when you're communicating something out to the public, you want to make it as simple as possible for everybody to understand. And if you don't get what I'm saying, look no further than
Mm-hmm.
the most epic failure I've seen in the last decade, which was Jaguar promoting a new campaign, a new strategy that took their sales. Michael, you should Google this or maybe check on ChatGPT. I want to say from sub 2,000 car sales a year
Mm-hmm.
to like 34 in a month
Mm-hmm.
because they so confused their customer and
Mm-hmm.
then the backlash that came from it. I don't know what Tata, the parent company, is going to do. They've installed a new CEO. I don't know if you just saw that.
Mm.
right? The last guy got fired, new CEO's hired. Boy, is he in trouble. He has to now reimagine the brand and get it back out in the public. This is as bad as they say the Bud Light debacle.
Mhm. Yep.
Right? Bud Light just completely forgot who their customers were and went a totally different direction. And you can make the argument, and I'm not talking just woke culture. I'm just giving just the example of like how to ineffectively communicate your message to your customers.
Mhm.
Did I go off
Yeah.
the deep end there, Jimmy?
Well, it's what you're describing, I think Jag was a great example of this. Your customers are very busy. They do not have a lot of time to process information. They are very skeptical.
Hmm.
And oftentimes brands communicate from a perspective of what they're about versus what their customers actually care about.
Right.
And so installing your identity, your belief system on your customers without recognizing theirs and what they value is a surefire way to get that type of pushback. I think that's what's interesting though about the external communication, building on that idea, Tom, is like some of the brands that I've been following lately who have been doing a really good job with this. It's not only what they say, it's what they talk about. We see this idea of like we've heard this expression of working in public. And what I have found really interesting is behind every really good founder who's right now growing in the spaces I follow is they are constantly reinforcing their mission as they communicate what it is they're actually doing.
Bingo.
And so there's just this like they see a problem and they say it should be better. I want it to be better. It needs to be better. And you get the feeling or the impression that they would do the damn thing for free. And I,
Yeah.
I think of people like Zando, who runs a new company called Resend. Stephen Co runs a company called Dub.co. These individuals are just on a mission. And so I think externally, a large part of the communication is you have to present yourself as a champion for the person that you're serving. And
Right.
and so much of the way you communicate is recognizing if your industry has flaws, right? You should be honest about that. Be truthful
Yes.
about that. And I think you see that with really, really good marketers as they're out there saying like, this should be better. I'm trying to build it better. A classic example of that is Dollar Shave Club. We're all familiar with the video,
Right.
right? Like, hey,
Right.
like their whole thing is like, it wasn't, hey, we built a better razor and it's cheaper. It's like, no, it shouldn't be this way. And so I would make a list of like when you think about your product or your experience or your service, what are the things that you feel like shouldn't be true but are true in your industry that you are on a mission to create a better world for?
Yep.
And if you have that list, it can help kind of guide how you communicate. But the other piece, Tom, which is worth mentioning, is repetition is persuasive,
You're okay. That's thank you for going there. Because I
right?
literally, so I talked to Jill Biggs today. Jill took 6 listings this morning,
Mm-hmm.
6 individual one at a time listings. And for my friend that's listening, you might be familiar with a crazy billboard that she published.
Yep.
And, something to the fact of we helped 466, people last year, and your cousin only helped to list responsibly.
Mm.
So she's had a few variations of that billboard. And she literally said to me today, God, it's like, it's hard now. Like I have to come up with the next one. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You can run that for as long as you think and then go longer. Geico saves you 15 minutes, will save you 15%. That's what is
Mm-hmm.
that, 20 years old?
Yeah, it's now almost 30 years old,
So
right?
so so the mistake, and I said to her, I go, hey, look, we've all been guilty of this. We get a unicorn, and now we're fearful that the next one might be a donkey. Keep running with the unicorn.
Yep.
Keep
Yep.
modifying the unicorn, variations of the unicorn. Just do the same billboard over and over again as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the direction you were going, but that
No,
literally happened this morning.
well, what's funny about that is I think there's an expression that we've heard in sort of business leadership, which is the moment you get sick of saying something is when people start to finally listen.
Mhm.
And so there's a chance that you're probably getting tired of saying both internally and externally, saying the same thing over and over and over again. But people look for that consistency. Consistency is a
Yes.
good signal that you're a trustworthy individual, assuming it's a positive consistency.
Yep.
All right, so Tom, we got to move on to high margins. Something
Yes.
me, you, and your wife Kathy, our business partner, all love, which is high margins. Um,
Yes.
let's make this one really practical. What do you think needs to be true I'll bring it back to real estate for a second. Let's say someone has a 30% margins on their business, right? They're making $1 million in GCI, they keep $300,000.
Mhm.
What is your go-to approach to increasing their margins from 30% to say 45%? Like what are you cutting? What are you streamlining? And I know it's context specific, but like where do you see the most waste?
They're probably not the norm, so I'm gonna be let's say I'm a solo agent, maybe I have an assistant,
Yep.
and I'm making good money top line, but I live in a state or a country where I get overtaxed, right, in my mind. So I'm trying to figure out how do I keep more of my money without messing with Revenue Canada or, the US and, yada, yada, yada. Um, it really is going to come down to this. It's not just where can I cut? It's can I increase my average sales price?
Mhm.
Can I increase first and foremost my net retained commission percentage?
Mhm.
In the US, we're seeing, post last August 17th, a very clear bifurcation in the marketplace where some people are now charging potentially a higher fee on one side or the other than they used to in the past, or they are finding that they're just simply retaining a higher fee
Yeah.
where they used to in the midst of the negotiation because there was, a perceived one side of, 5%, 6%, whatever it was, that
Mhm.
there be some wiggle room on negotiation. So one is, can you increase your sales price?
Yep.
The answer is yes. The second one is, can I increase my retained percentage? The answer is yes. And then the third and obvious one is, can I actually create a budget and adhere to it? Because I
Mhm.
think that's the mistake is that I don't have a budget. So I tell people all the time, like, first of all, even as I say this to you, listen very carefully. Have you ever taken your P&L, removed any personal information that you would not want on the front cover of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or the, Toronto Hoobie Doo tomorrow?
Mm.
Remove all that stuff, your social security number, banking information, even your own name, and just take your P&L, put it inside ChatGPT and say, I'm not earning enough. What are the obvious adjustments I can make to increase to go from 20% retained to 45% retained? And watch what happens. Every
Mhm.
client I get to do this, it says the same thing. Increase the number of transactions, increase your average sales price, right? Retain a higher fee, stay on your budget. And then when you get into cut waste,
Mhm.
it's like, what do you do that you've always said? Like my wife grabs my phone at least once a month, Jimmy. And I know this is not going to shock you. And she goes to everything I have, Michael, on like reoccurring billing on my phone.
Yeah, sure.
And this is like, this is just like, this is date night with Kathy Ferry. Are you still using this app? No, canceled. Are you do this? Cancel, cancel. So she's like every date night, she tries to save like,
She
$83.
she just paid for dinner. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it really is those three. The last one is the big one is having a budget and sticking to it, which
Yeah.
means and sticking to it also means in a slow month, you stick to it.
Mhm.
Because the big mistake, the one of the fastest things, what does everybody cut in the very beginning? Sales and
Oh,
marketing efforts.
yep.
And then what happens? Oh, if you think it's painful now, just
Mhm.
wait 60, 90, 120 days, 180 days from now when you stopped your touches, when you stopped your marketing, when you stopped your posts, when you stopped your direct mail, because then you're really in trouble. So long
There's
answer.
there's countless examples of where businesses in down times that increase their marketing and advertising budget not only do better in the short term, but also create significant growth in the long term.
Right.
I think I have one other area, Tom, that's an area that is a personal pet peeve of mine,
Tell me.
which is, uh, and I've lived through this. We once spent at one of my other businesses, we once spent $1.2 million for a customer party, right? And I tell you the story because you make fun of me because of it. Like we had like a lobster brunch buffet. We had, all the best speakers,
Yep.
beautiful hotel. And you know what happened to our churn the next month? It was exactly the same.
Yep.
And we put it under the category of like, well, we're just investing in our clients. Now it was a hell of a party, but it didn't really impact the business long term. There, if you reinvest your earnings without understanding your customer acquisition costs, you are going to incinerate your cash.
Bingo.
I cannot say that any more clearly. Right now, what happens is, Tom,
Say it again. Say, Jimmy, say it again.
if you reinvest your earnings without knowing how much it costs you to acquire customers, you are going to incinerate your cash.
Yep.
Because because you know what people call an expense, what the sort of euphemism is for an expense? They call it an investment,
Yep.
right? It's not. It's you just guessing with your own money. And so one of the things that we do at Listing Leads is we are very profitable business, and we do 2 things. Number 1, we don't invest ahead of our skis, and we are, I wouldn't call us conservative, but we do not spend our money. We spend a certain amount of money guessing, but we call it a guess. Hey, we're gonna try something. We're gonna call it a guess, but we don't put it under the big, auspice of investing. The second thing we do is we pay ourselves first. And I think what's funny is, and I love this about the business that we've started and the businesses that we are starting, is that when you pay yourself first, you would then have a constraint, and that constraint creates, you know, innovation, which actually leads to more sustainable growth. So
Right.
if you don't do that, then you just spend the money thinking you're going to invest it, and what happens is, and our friend Jeremy Davis would talk about this to us as well. It's like the only thing early in my career, Tom, I cared about my top line revenue. That's all I
Yep.
thought about. Grow top line, grow top line, grow top line. This next chapter, I'm like, yeah, I want to grow top line, but you know what's better? Bottom line. So,
Bottom.
I mean,
Yep.
that's the thing that I think in real estate in particular. Yes, if you sell $100 million of real estate, but you keep $300,000 for yourself, something's broken in your business, and it takes a little bit of hit to the ego, Tom, as you know, but it is something that I think the more mature business people and the more experienced business people, they talk a lot more about bottom line than they do top line, unquestionably.
100%. It's glamorous to talk about, hey, we did $1 million in X, or hey, we went from 0 to X. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But at the end of the day, like I tell the story of when I started this company. I was chatting with a friend a couple of days ago about his sort of woes and what he's currently experiencing in year 25. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what your top line revenue is. If you went from X down to Y,
Mhm.
the only thing that matters is when you went down to Y, are you still making enough money to make it worthwhile? I'm like,
Yeah.
when I started my company 23 years ago, looking at my 26-year-old son, are you 25 or 26? Why do I keep screwing that up?
Yes.
25. All right. So I should 26. Sorry. Man, yeah. All right. Okay. I'm buying you dinner. Um, you know what, Michael? In the first year, we did $2 million in revenue, and I thought we were hot shit, right?
Mhm.
We got to 6 million the next year. We got almost to $10 million in year 3, but mom and I didn't make any money. We didn't take a single dime out of the business. What we did is we kept just reinvesting, 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 reinvesting. Now, there is a strategy to that,
Sure.
but knowing what I know now, because by the way, year 4 was 2007, the global financial crisis. So
Mm.
everyone can remember what that experience was like. Knowing what I know now, I always think like, if I'm going to pour myself into this, I want a healthy enough margin
Mhm.
that gets paid back time to value sooner than later.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
the mistake that a lot of people make is we go into things. This is it. Every one of my friends are. You've made this decision at one point. Well, it's just one transaction.
Mhm.
It's just one
Mhm.
deal. God, if I just get one deal, like
Mhm.
I can hire that assistant, it's just one deal. No, it's not. It never is. It never
Mhm.
is. So I want you to think about protecting your bottom line.
Yeah.
I want you to think about, like Jimmy said, paying yourself first. I want you to think about the next time you say, I'm going to add this and add that and add this. Well, if that comes out of your savings account or the money you should be paying to yourself, in my opinion, it's a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Figure out how you can squeeze, if you will, more margins through better follow up, better nurture campaigns, all the stuff that like your
Yeah.
ego doesn't want to do. You want to
Mhm.
just keep spending money to find more transactions. Screw your damn ego and get the money.
Yeah. It's a really counterintuitive thing that you only learn through maturity. Sometimes the way to earn more is to make less.
Yeah.
Which is the pursuing that sort of next level, which requires more people, more resources, more investment. You sort of like Tom, how many examples have we seen of like these conglomerates that
Yep.
just roll up businesses, and they're yes, the revenue is incredibly high, and there's like one good business, but it's surrounded by a bunch of bad businesses. I think that's actually probably more common than we probably realize. Is that you may be making less than you want right now, But what's happening is you have a bunch of bad businesses surrounding a good business.
Yes.
Can you in the business world, they call it divesting. Can you divest yourself from some of these investments you're making or initiatives that are just not making you any money? And yes, it will hurt your ego, as Tom said, but sometimes the way to earn more is to make less. Tom, we got to talk about virality. This was number, I believe, 7 on your list,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
6 or
Virality or organic. That
okay.
that the name of the company or what we do is so natural. Listing leads is a great example of, right? I want more listing leads. We show up,
Yep.
right? We're like number one in the search, and then it's everybody else trying to advertise. So to me, virality is what can I do? What can I demonstrate? What can I deliver to the customer that makes them want to tell everybody else about it?
Mhm.
And so, we talk about like jaw-dropping experiences, and
Yep.
I can't wait at the summit. Matter of fact, Coach Christie is doing a talk called the jaw-dropping buyer experience. Like, how do you take a buyer experience and just make it so radically special and unique and fun? Because buying a house is fun. It's a fun
Mhm.
experience. But she's saying, let's do it by design every single time. So I think about it from that standpoint, that someone that maybe is then meeting with her client and saying, "Yeah, we're so excited. We're buying this house," and somebody else like, "Oh my god, but I just worked with this gal, Coach Christie. You're not going to believe what she did."
Mhm.
Can
Mhm.
a real estate professional, can a mortgage professional, can a title exec, can an escrow, can a manager of a company, can they create that kind of experience? I guess it's starting with the end result in mind.
Mhm.
How do I run this campaign? How do I solve this problem for customers? But think in advance that I want them to tell everybody about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing to add to that is you and I talk a lot about this idea of the shout out to our friends over at My First Million, the concept of a barnacle on a whale.
Yeah.
Which is so if you think about virality, you could think about it in the context what Tom just broke down for you, which is creating an experience that causes your customers to create another customer.
Mhm.
And there's a great book called The Viral Loop I read now over 15 years ago that can kind of, make you fall in love with this idea. But the other opportunity in addition to that is to look at being a barnacle on a whale. What that means is what are the rising tides within your industry or within your market that you can attach yourself to? And the sheer fact that you are riding a wave accelerates your growth. A good example of this is HubSpot famously was the marketing platform of choice for Salesforce. This was before they built the CRM. So a huge part of their growth was they were a barnacle on the sales on Mark Benioff's whale, right? I mean,
Right.
they just attached themselves to that. Um, Another example of this you look at tools like, Shopify, who just tapped into with Mailchimp as well, like becoming the de facto sort of solution in a growing category. So I think
Mhm.
a lot about this idea of like, most recently you've got a tool called Lovable today, which is a vibe coding platform, and their preferred database tool is a tool called Superbase. Superbase is growing because Lovable is growing,
Right.
and so
Right.
that's number 1. Number 2 is what are the growing markets? And this can be applied to every business from every single product or service. Where is the market expanding quickly? Can you put yourself in a position where you increase your surface area for luck, Tom? I mean, growth becomes a little less hard if A, you attach yourself to a company that's growing, or B, you attach yourself to a market that's growing. So in addition to the virality of getting customers to spread it, like find the natural waves that exist within the market and just get a surfboard.
How many people do we know, Jimmy, to your point, that have literally grabbed back in the day? I'm going to pull it out here, a flip video camera,
Mhm,
right? Or now this extraordinary iPhone, and said, "Hey, today we're going to go shop the new construction development at the blah, blah, blah."
mhm.
They don't have the listing, right?
Yep.
The builder has not said to them, "Hey, will you please do this for me?" But they're riding the wave of all the new construction developments, high rise, low rise, apartment buildings, everything in their community, and they become the barnacle,
Mhm,
right? New
mhm,
product, new launch, and they become the barnacle. So I love that. But I can't help but also think in today's day and age, so I think back to the end of 2016, the beginning of 2017. I remember saying to all my coaches, we're going to be the first video first coaching company,
mhm,
right? We're going to be first and we're going to be fast. You and I talk about that. Be first,
Mhm.
be fast. And we were first into the marketplace. And you know what? It created a buzz. It created the,
Mhm.
you know what it did? It actually, the feedback I got, and it was small, so this is not like the biggest piece of feedback, but the small feedback I kept getting was, yeah, I've just been talking to my other coach on the phone forever.
Yeah.
Do
Yep.
you know what I mean? So it wasn't a massive pain point, but it was a big enough degree of separation that I think a lot of coaching companies then had to do it.
Yep.
And we were super early back in the day when I would like have to bring in like professional media, trainers to
Mhm.
teach the coach like lighting and in front of the camera. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep.
Don't take your shirt off in the middle of your thing, which you would normally do. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like silly stuff like that. But that became it. And I
Mhm.
can't help but think how many agents right now could become the first AI agent in their marketplace.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
I don't know if that's how I would say it, but some like there is this massive growing trend. I heard recently from a friend, shout out to James, the Zillow killer. He said to me, Tom, listen, man, there's some products being built right now that most countries aren't ready for.
Mhm.
When he made that statement, and then I won't share all the details he said afterwards, I was like, yes. So why wouldn't an agent today, Jimmy, who wanted to become maybe a little more viral, first do everything that Jason talks about in terms of making sure that on every major platform where they type in any possible question, you are the agent that shows up. But if you have the audacity to say, I'm an AI first agent going forward, you could be
Mhm.
first, right?
Mhm.
You could create some virality with that because no one else is talking about it. Nobody
Yeah.
else is saying it. So
Yeah.
also to viral is being first.
Yeah. Be first, be different. Yeah, be first, be fast, but be different. I think what you described is like I always think about this idea of um every strength can become a weakness and every weakness can become a strength. So
Mhm.
if you're an agent today who is, let's say, not Jill Biggs,
Yeah.
hasn't sold 400 homes in the last year, and
Yeah.
you're the cousin, right? Well, you can't compete. You cannot compete on volume, on experience. You cannot compete on brand cachet, on team. So you have to find where you can win. And
Yes.
there's a guy. A famous story, and we're gonna hopefully drop in the show notes. I think his name's Danny Sullivan, but I'll double check. The guy who wrote the book, I think it's like Set the Table, who ran the 30th greatest restaurant in the world. And we'll find the title of the book. I'm probably misquoting the
Sure.
guy's name.
Sure.
30th best restaurant in the world. So he took his team. He said, "Listen, we want to be number one." So he's like, "I'm gonna take you to the number one restaurant." And they're all sitting down and everyone's taking notes. Everyone's like, "This is what they do really well. This is what they do, what they're exceptional at." And they go to present to them at the end of the day. They go, What'd you think?" And they go, "Oh, they did this, they did this, they did this." And they go, "No, no, I know what they did well. We do that too well. What did they do poorly?" And someone's like, "Well, the coffee wasn't anything to write home about." Or, the beer was pretty basic.
Yeah.
And so they made a list of all the things the number one restaurant in the world did poorly, and they did those things exceptionally well. And that created the experience that catapulted them to the number one restaurant in the world. And I think it's Madison Park, right? I believe it is, or name of the restaurant. That's where when you say that, I'm like, man, virality is all about finding the weaknesses of your competition and exploiting them. And so, yes, Tom, we know the people who are the number one agents in the market, if they don't have the mindset to change, they are not going to adopt AI as fast as the people who are, let's say, looking for an edge, to your
Yes.
point.
Yes. Okay. So the last one, by the way, let us know in the comments. Are you going to go AI first agent and make that part of your brand?
Yep.
An agent for anything, agent lender, agent title, agent escrow, agent, leadership. I'm the first AI manager you have. Like I'm going to digitize myself, like Tom AI, Revy AI as an example. But the last one, Jimmy, we got to do this relatively quick, but it's such an important one because it's so relevant to our friend listening. And that is easy onboarding and making that onboarding experience something magical for the customer. I go back to a podcast I did. Shout out to Lisa Munoz,
Mhm.
uh, Carolyn Young,
Mhm.
both of them separately. The language that they use when they onboard a client,
Yeah.
it if you've ever joined a club that
Mhm.
you had to actually have some references to get into. Something like that. Both of them, the way they described their buyer or seller onboarding solution,
Mhm.
it was like, Jimmy, we'd be willing to onboard you.
Mhm.
What? Like everyone else is like, oh my God, I'd love to show you a house.
Mhm.
Right. And
Mhm.
they were like, we'd be willing to onboard you. We would love to onboard you as a client. Imagine saying that in Carolyn's case to an expired listing.
Mhm.
The language is different. The experience is different. The way that she would then go about meeting with that client, staging, getting the property ready, everything was designed to be different, to be special, to be
Yeah.
memorable, if you will. And then in case Lisa Munoz, her onboarding questionnaire that she talked about in this podcast, and we should probably Brandon link up that original Lisa Munoz podcast. She was like, "Well, we were asking her like, well, what's your favorite coffee spot? What do you
Mhm.
like most? What kind of food do you like, not like?" And you were talking about somebody that's like, moving to Austin as an example.
Yeah.
Just look, I'm getting a job transfer. I'm only going to be there for 4 or 5 years, and I found the house online. And then you connect with this person, and she's onboarding you in this just way that is so delightful.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then you look at her track record in the year we did this podcast, it's just a few years ago. She's like, yeah, this year of my 1,100 past clients, we had 97 closed referrals directly from our own customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can onboard people in a way that is memorable. You can
Mhm.
onboard clients in a way that has them feel delighted.
Mm.
Or, yeah, hello,
Mhm.
welcome. Let me show you a house.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Onboarding comes down to one very simple equation, which is effort to return. How much effort am I having put in versus how much of return of value do I
Yeah.
get?
Yeah.
And so the anytime you can reduce the effort from the consumer, the decisions the consumer has to make,
Mhm.
the cognitive load of the consumer, and in return, they get something of value, a moment of epiphany or a great experience, jaw-dropping customer experience we've heard before. Like it is the effort to return ratio that will dictate whether or not you have a great onboarding experience. The higher the effort, the lower the return, which is what it normally is right now, is going to be a bad customer experience. Low effort, high return is going to be a great customer experience. But I will say this,
Yeah.
you and I study software businesses and SaaS businesses and recurring revenue businesses. And one thing we know to be true is that everything about building a scalable business comes down to the onboarding experience. The
Yeah.
person they either set up for life and they're a customer for life because I get it, or you spend all your time and energy trying to course correct that first bad 7 days. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very unsexy, Tom, but onboarding is everything when it comes to building a scalable business.
So, my friend listening, if you're a real estate agent, you know this experience where the National Association of Realtors will say, we surveyed clients and we asked them, did you like your realtor? And they're like, oh, I love Jimmy. He was amazing. Would you use Jimmy again? 88% of the people, whatever the high percentage was, of course.
Mhm.
And then 12% do. Now, there's a lot of factors behind that. You owe me the updated version of the case study that you did back in 2022, where
Mhm.
high performing agents were getting 50% of the people to actually use them again or refer them, which is phenomenal. The point is, every business churns.
Mhm.
Every bit clients churn. I just talked to one of my clients, Stephanie Younger. Shout out to Stephanie. Most of her business is listing side. So her past client is leaving. You
Mhm.
with me on this? So
Yeah.
business churn, right? Customers churn. The thing that I always go back to, one of my great kind of mentor advisors said, spend all the money up front.
Mm.
Spend all the money. If you were going to if you if you had a how do I save my client from not going to Zillow campaign,
Mm.
or how do I stop the spend the money up front, make the onboarding experience better.
Mhm.
You will get a far greater return. And that really that always stuck out for me. I mean, and like, I'm watching my son Michael here Michael, how many months in the company now? 4 months. And his first few months, I'm like, I want you to go be a part of client experience, be a part of onboarding, be a part of all the beginning stage post a sale, a sign up with us.
Yeah.
Understand the customer, to understand what they're experiencing, to understand the uncertainty they may have, and how important it is we do time to value right. All this stuff we probably changed our onboarding from the time that Mary Jet took over as the president of the company. So that's 5 years ago. She's
Yeah.
probably made at least 7 or 8 pretty major changes
Mhm.
because it's not something you just set and forget.
Mhm. Mhm.
Consumers change, behaviors change, AI changes. So you've got to always be on like, how do I constantly improve the experience to have that customer be delighted, to experience time to value, to
Yeah.
want to talk about what, hey, I just made the decision to do this. This is awesome.
Mhm.
I don't know. I get very excited about this. This is a very different show.
Listen, Tom. I think hopefully people will listen to this show and realize that you may sell real estate, but you're building a business. And the
Yes.
best thing that you can do right now is to take lessons and learnings from everyone around you in and outside of real estate and try to adapt it for your business. We will learn from anybody and everybody that sells anything well and
Yeah.
services well. We'll try to adapt that so we translate that in our brains. Real quick, Tom, let's end the show with this. We are now officially, the growth mode is officially on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts. So I want to make sure people who are listening right now, if you're listening on the audio version, to give us a rating. Hopefully it's 5 stars if we earned it. We want to make sure that we're getting as much exposure there as well. And Tom, we are now officially on episode number 5, man. This is an incredible experience. I feel like we're just starting to hit our rhythm. And hopefully next week, Jason will, not stiff us here and show up to the podcast. That'd be nice.
That would be awesome. I think I mentioned we have like almost sub 600 YouTube subscribers as of today.
That's
So
right.
we can hardly say we're the number one growth show in the world, but
This is the beginning.
from small seedling becomes so I just before we wrap up the show, I know we would typically do the last thing, which I always forget the name of, but Jimmy, I got to just the whole time I'm sitting here looking at like at your set
Mhm.
versus my set.
Mm.
And you got this cool little background. Jimmy's wearing summer clothes for the first time ever in his
This is
life.
summer, Jimmy. Yes.
Right. Yes, exactly. He's wearing leather pants and that shirt, right? That's the summer version of Jimmy. But the whole time I'm looking at my setting and I'm like, like what was the origin of this? Like the black, the colors,
Mm.
and this is what I got. You ready?
Yeah, that
You
sounds
are
about right.
if you're watching only, that is another one of my musical muses. That is Ace Frehley, the guitar player of Kiss, the very
Mhm.
first band I saw in 1979, the Dynasty Tour. I'm not saying I'm putting on the makeup, but I do
Yes.
have a photo of me and 3 of my buddies dressed exactly like this. Anyway, with that said, Jimmy, thank you. Always great show. I got to bounce. I know you do too. For my friend listening, again, yes, follow us everywhere. Give us a review. We would love that. But most importantly, you know what I want to say to you? Really think about this show the next time you're launching a new campaign, thinking about an idea, or someone says, I want to start a company. Maybe, just maybe, this can become a good framework for you to have a more successful outcome. Because the truth is, most businesses fail.
Mhm.
Most startups fail. I know from experience because I've invested in a bunch that did not make it over the finish line. And they were good people with good ideas, but because they didn't have a framework, because they didn't have a structure to say, how should we start this? Ultimately, they missed the mark and probably burned a bunch of their money, and worse, people like myself and Jimmy as investors. So take this, run with it, and let us know what you think in the show notes. All right, Jimmy, see you on the next one, buddy. Take care.